Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to round number 6 of Dark Spheres PPTQ. We have Maciek on Abzan Agro versus Charles Eliatamby on
Just go black.
Just Go Black. Excellent.
So this is the other archetypal standard matchup that you would expect these days. We've had Jeskai Black against Ataka Red. Now we have Jeskai Black against Abzan Agro. This is probably seen this a couple of times if you watched any sort of other coverage. It was the Pro Tour final. I think it was also in the top 8 of last weekend's GP.
It wasn't the Pro Tour final.
Was it not?
No, it was. That was like Just Go.
Was it?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So it was Jeskai without the black, but it's fairly similar.
Fairly similar. Although the Just Go Blacklist does have the Crackling Dooms, which are a bit better in that matchup. It's got, you know, that way to kill the lion, not the lion, sorry, the rhinos and the anafences.
Sure, but it's the same premise. It's a Mantis Rider deck against a Rhino deck.
Yeah.
So the dynamics of the matchup doesn't change up very much. It's just a matter of I'm going to fly over you and I'm going to bash you with a 4 or 5 trampler. Both of these lists look pretty solid. They're pretty common lists. We have one off Painful Truth as a bit of spicy tech in the main deck of the Jeskai Black deck, and for the Abzan Aggro, it looks like it's just a straightforward 4 Anafenses, 4 Siege Rhino build with just a single Silk Wrap.
3 Hangerbacks and 3 Den Protectors.
Yep, it's a fairly like bog standard builds.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how this rolls up, because it's a very skill intensive matchup. I think the matchup isn't anywhere further from like 50-50 is probably fair on how this matchup should go. I think it's slightly Jeskai Black favoured if they draw the correct half of the deck. So it's great when they draw the Crackling Dooms and Mantis Riders. It's less good when they draw the Dispel and Dragon Master Outcast half of the deck.
Yeah.
So, which are all cards which are present in Charles's deck.
Yep.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, so players just shuffling up, and we've just had John ask if we were good for them to start, and we are. So once the players are ready, we will start. Yeah. So
we're in round 6 now. So this is almost a winning in, I would say.
I think so. Depending on how their tie breaks are, it will look sort of like a winning in.
So both these players have a lot to play for.
Yeah. Charles with an interesting hand actually. He's got Jace. He's got Mantis Rider. He's got
Polluted Delta Mountain.
Yeah.
It looks like a
Crackling Doom.
It looks like a pretty good keep here. Like, he can crack the fetch to go for a Prairie Stream, then he's got the Mountain, and he just needs a blue source to be able, blue or white source to cast a Mountain Rider on turn 3.
I think he Sunken Hollow. As in, I think he wants to crack for a Sunken Hollow.
I disagree with that because just on the basis,
I mean, now that he's drawn the second
Delta, he probably just cracks for an island here so that he can play the Jace.
Yeah.
And then he can turn 3 crack for whichever one he needs to cast the Mantis Rider, which is probably Prairie Stream. But again, we're seeing the importance of sequencing your lands in this format.
Yeah. So he's actually not gone for the island. I think he might be.
No.
I like the Sunken Hollow here only because he can then use that to cast either Mantis Rider or Crackling Doom on turn 3.
That doesn't quite work. If you go for the Sunken Hollow, you can't cast both unless you get Prairie Stream as well.
As in, if he has a white source as well on turn 3, he can cast one of the 2.
So this way round he can. This way round he ensures he can cast both as well.
Yeah.
Because it depends all on the third land.
Yep.
So the ideal opening is Plains Mountain, Sunken Hollow,
yeah.
But he wants to cast the turn 2 Jace, so here he goes for the Prairie Stream.
Sure.
And Charles knows how to play his Jaces correctly by colouring out the whole card rather than just ticking it. So
makes it slightly easier to see,
especially on camera. So essentially perfect mana. Yeah, we're going to see a Mantis Rider here. It's a perfect start here from Charles' deck, but I think Maciek is ready for it with the Abzan Charm to get rid of the Mantis Rider.
Sure.
And yeah, as we see, he's going to crack that for a Forest, which
Yep.
gives him also the perfect mana. But he's still got a problem with dealing with the Jace. This is the problem for Abzan aggro nowadays, is that it's very difficult for you to get a Jace off the table.
Yeah, especially if they don't have any creatures themselves for something like a Dromoka's Command. So.
Yeah. And we see that in Maciek's list, he's only got one Silk Wrap, so he is very limited in his ways to deal with a Jace. And, we see a Gideon here. So talking of problem cards for each of the decks.
Yeah.
So Abzan struggles to deal with the Jace, and Jeskai in many respects do struggle also with dealing with Gideon. But Mantis Riders are pretty good for that. Unfortunately, there is no Mantis Rider here. As we see, losing away a Colligan's Command. And another Jace. So this is why Jace is good. Again, we don't have to tell the viewers why Jace is good. There's so many reasons, but
Yeah.
the fact that you can play 4 copies and very rarely get punished for it because Jaces get rid of your own Jaces is a definite reason. Like one of the many reasons why this card is so good.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting to see what Maciek decides to do on his next turn. You know,
His hand has a Wingmate Rock, so I imagine what he wants to do here is to find his 5th land drop, and then I see a
think he's actually
Smoldering
got one.
Marsh. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see some Smoldering Marsh. So I imagine what he is going to go for here is probably either animating the Gideon. If Charles taps out here, it makes it a lot easier for him because he doesn't have to be scared of the Crackling Doom.
Yep.
And then that would allow him to then trigger the raid on the bird and get in for 7. But I have a feeling that Charles isn't going to tap out here, and he's probably just going to flip the Jace past the turn, holding up Crackling Doom for the Gideon. Because he can just plus on the Knight ally here. Although he's going to Jeskai Charm. Oh, okay, Jeskai Charm dealing 4 gets rid of the Gideon too, but this now does open the pathway for Maciek to play his Wingmate Rock.
Yeah.
And Wingmate Rock is another card which is very difficult for the
Abzan decks
for the
sorry,
Jeskai deck
Jeskai
to get
decks
rid
deal
of.
with, yeah.
It's actually difficult for both decks.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to get rid of per se. It's just that the resources which you have to use to get rid of it is quite like it ruins your game plan a little bit. Like you're trying to do 1-for-1s and now you got a 2-for-1 yourself to get rid of this bird.
Yeah, although he does have 2 Crackling Dooms, so I think he's probably okay just casting those.
But it still costs 6 mana.
True.
6 mana and 2 cards to get rid of 1 card and 5 mana is not a good trade.
No, it's not a good trade, but Charles is probably still doesn't mind actually doing that.
No,
If he has to.
there is a nice interaction here that because he's got a Jace, he can choose which rock dies
Exactly.
with the Crackling Doom. And as we see here, he's going to choose to get rid of the real one because then doesn't give him the life back. Charles has a hand here. What's the second card in his hand? The blue card. It looks like it's
Dispel.
Dispel. Okay.
It's
So-
the old Return to Ravnica.
Right. Okay. So that's actually quite a good card to have right now because Maciek's hand is Dromoka's Command and lands. So
Yep.
on his next turn, you'd imagine that his player is probably going to involve a Dromoka's Command to kill the Dragon Master Outcast before it can start making dragons, and then you have a big problem because Wingmate Rocks are smaller than dragons. And the Dispel gives him the protection for that Dragon Master Outcast. And I believe there's also an Ogutize command in the bin anyway, so even if Maciek gets rid of the Dragon Master Outcast, he could always flash back Ogutize command and then remake another one. And this next draw from Maciek is just going to tempt him further into that line of making Dromoka's command as he just drew a Hangerback Walker. So
Yeah.
you can make a Hangerback Walker, put a counter on it, and then fight. And then discover that Charles has a Dispel for him ready. But still, it's not so bad. He's going to get to hit for 3 this turn, puts Charles to 13, and if Charles doesn't draw a land next turn, then he's not going to start pumping out those dragons just yet.
So he's
does
electing
go
to
for the
attack Jace
Jace.
here, which I think is right.
It's sensible to try and get rid of Jace if you can.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can see that he's still got the Crackling Doom, so he is going to get rid of that Windmate Rock this next turn. He makes the 2/2 Hangerback Walker here. So Charles could potentially walk into a bit of a trap if he's not careful here. So what I mean is that he could potentially.
He's gonna.
Oh no, he's going to do it now. But like, there's the Dispel. But he could have potentially
Yeah.
not left the Dispel mana up and then tried the Crackling Doom. But there would be a lot of misplays there for that to happen.
Yeah. So he's drawn his Painful Truths.
Yeah. So that's a great draw here when your opponent's down to 0 cards and you're down to 1, and he's going to refill with an active Jace and a Dragon Master Outcast, who is going to start making dragons next turn.
Yep.
So this is not looking great for Maciek. Oh, he's got 1 card now, but it's a land, as we know. So what do we think Maciek wants to draw here?
I'm not sure. Obviously, a big value card, something like a Seed Rhino, would be quite good. But again, all he gets really is a Crackling Doom from the Jace brought back. Then again, I could see something like, well, Jace is probably dying this turn. Actually no, because he minuses. Of course, yeah. Sorry, no. Jace is plus on one of the guys to give minus. Yeah, I think potentially another Hangerback Walker, or another.
Wow. Okay.
Wingmate Rock.
So he's going to destroy the Hangerback Walker, giving his opponent 2 tokens, and also get rid of the 2/2. That's not so bad. I mean, he's now got 5 points of power, which means that he's going to lose this Jace unless he chooses to block. No, he's got the Shambling Vent as well. So there's.
Oh, okay,
5
yeah,
points
sure,
power.
of course.
So that was an interesting play there. I'm not sure that was necessarily correct. Killing the Hangerback Walker there seems a little bit off, but I guess he did just refuel with the Painful Truth. So.
Yeah, he did draw 2 lands and Colligan's Command though, so
yeah, he's gonna start making dragons. He's not too sad to lose the Jace, although obviously you'd rather not. And in answer to what he drew that turn, it was a Shambling Vent.
wow, he's just drawn Sarkhan off the top. So
okay, so that's gonna put a bit of hurt on to Maciek, and that's gonna let him get rid of the rock token, I presume. In fact, he doesn't even need to. He's got a 5/5 dragon, so he could just plus Sarkhan, hit for 4. Putting Sarkhan up to a fairly healthy 5, and passing, and then because if he minuses here to kill the rock, then Sarkhan will just die to stop the swing. So he probably just wants to kind of plus swing, and then see how Maciek wants to play.
Attack for 5.
Yeah.
Put him to 14.
This is kind of a risky attack because. He's only on 12. He's not gaining any life back. So if Maciek draws a removal spell for that dragon, he's going to be able to get in for 5, 6, 7 points of damage, depending what the removal spell is, which puts him to 5, and that puts him in a very precarious life total whereby he can't really attack anymore.
Yeah.
Because if then Maciek draws another removal spell, he's going to lose.
He can actually attack for 9 this turn.
Not
I think
through
he's
the
got another
dragon.
land.
Not through the dragon, because the dragon can block.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I was saying that if he drew a removal spell. Which is Absent Charm is the only one that actually deals with dragon, but still.
Murderous Cut.
Does he run Murderous Cut?
He's got 2 Murderous Cuts.
Okay, Murderous Cut, and he's still got 1 Silk Grab, which works. Yeah. But you imagine that if he does draw any of those removal spells, he'd rather point it at the Dragon Master Outcast. That is probably what he wants to draw right now. What he wants to draw probably 2 turns ago before the Dragon Master started making tokens. But now he's also got another dragon to deal with in the form of Sarkhan. And he's probably drawn just a couple too many lands in this game, I would say. As good as Shambling Vent is, it's not ideal. It's just best of the worst you can get.
Yep.
And that Hangerback Walker isn't going to do much against Charles's flying army, which is going to be able to attack for 9 next turn, I believe, and then still have a 5/5 back to block.
Interesting. So he's actually just going to cast this Hangerback Walker for 4.
That's fine. I think. So what this line allows him to do is that if he draws Dromoka's command next turn, it lets him kill one dragon that he's just made, and then he's going to have 5 more blockers
Yep.
or attackers, and then potentially be able to kind of close out the game by swarming around Charles's board.
Yeah. I think if you're Charles here, you probably just minus the Sarkhan on the bird token. Maybe.
Maybe.
I mean,
But Sarkhan's indestructible, right? So he can still plus the Sarkhan attack, and then force Maciek either to jump or take the 4 going to 9. I don't think he needs to jump here. He can probably just afford to take the 4. But Charles elects to take the line that you suggested and take care of that rock token, knowing that he's fairly safe from the swing back here because Sarkhan's now on 2. He's also just drawn an Ojutai's command, which will allow him to get back to Jace at the end of his turn if he needs to.
Yep.
And also gain 4 life, which is probably not irrelevant, because if that hangback walker grows and then dies, it's quite a quick clock.
Yep.
Having said that, Charles does have 2 5/5 dragons and a Sarkhan.
I mean, depending on what Maciek has this turn, we could actually see Charles killing next turn.
Yes. Like at this moment in time, Charles is definitely ahead.
Yeah.
Maciek needs to draw very well in the next couple of turns in order to be able to kind of draw his way back into this game. But I think he's going to try and force his way through and try and kill this Sarkhan and gain some life in the process. He may just run into a unfortunate Crackling Doom though. I guess Crackling Doom isn't so great when he's got Hanger back. So Sarkhan dies here, and still not so great. 3 dragons next turn now, and he's lost Event to do so. I think that's a good trade. Event for a Sarkhan is probably fine, but now Jace has got to come back and cause a lot of misery. So what does Jace have in the graveyard that he can return?
Colligan's command.
Okay.
Kill the 2 Thopters. Attack for 10. And then he's got the
Crackling Doom.
Crackling Doom for the final 2 points.
Yep, I like that line. I think that is actually probably the correct line here.
The game-winning line.
Yeah, I mean his opponent's tapped out, so let's see whether Charles can see this line here. Just don't sequence it incorrectly so that he ends up with Crackling Dooming before he does the 10. Then
Yeah.
then it'd be sad. But I think he's gonna loot and find the Crackling Doom. Colligan's command. No, he chooses. Oh, it is Colligan's command. Yep, and we see it. He's gonna go for that line. Swing for 10. So it's been a interesting so this match we saw why the Jeskai deck is slightly favoured, because it's quite hard for Maciek to all the removal spells in Charles's deck has some targets, so if they line up exactly as how he wants them to line up, he's very much favoured. So you saw the Colligan's command there getting the 2-for-1. You saw the Ojutai's commands getting back to Jace's. You saw the Jace flipping. Those are all the kind of things that Charles wants to happen, and he had them happen at the right times. So what he doesn't want to see is when he has the Colligan's command facing an offender. What he doesn't want to see is to have his Jace getting Dromoka's commanded by a Hangerback Walker.
Yeah.
So in that game, he kind of saw the perfect scenarios that he wants to see in the matchup.
Exactly. So, out of the sideboard, Maciek has 2 Ultimate Price, 2 Surge of Righteousness, 1 Den Protector, 1 Utter End, 1 Obnixilis, 2 Transgress to Mind, 3 Duress, 1 Wingmate Rock, 1 Self-Inflicted Wound, and 1 Tasker the Golden Fang. So what do you see coming in here?
So, from the Amazon side of the deck, I think Surges are good here for the Mantis Riders. I can see him putting in the Utter Ends for the Sarkhan that he saw. Probably not those 2, not the Transgress or the Duress. So, okay, maybe
Duress?
sorry, not the Duress, not the Transgress, but I think Duress is fine. I wouldn't put the full 3 that he has in the board in,
No.
because I don't think that he's that he. So he wants some duress for the information and to
Yep.
take the odd command here and there. But the things that he is worried about is the Mantis Rider
Yep.
and it's the Jace. So he probably also wants to put in a Wingmate Rock. As we said, that is a card that is difficult to deal with. Probably not the Tasigur.
No, do you not think another a creature beat down?
Not. So a lot of these cards are great to put in, but if you look at his main deck, there's not many cards he wants to be taking out. He's got to probably take out the Hangerback Walkers because the Jeskai deck tends to just ignore Hangerback Walkers.
Yep.
For the most part. He's probably going to want to keep the Gideons, want to keep the Ringmate Rocks, wants to keep the Dromoka's commands. Reluctantly, because it's actually a terrible card in the matchup, but he needs it to get rid of the turn 2 Jace.
Yep.
By the same token, that's sort of why you want to keep the Hangerback Walkers, but not so much. You're going to have to keep the Murderous Cuts. You probably want to keep the Siege Rhinos. You want to keep the Charms. So you're not left with many things you want to take out, really.
Sure.
So you have a limited number of slots you want to bring in. And as good as some of these cards are against Jeskai, you're going to have to consider that you don't want to dilute your deck too much with too many answers. So like Duress is, for example, is one of those times when you are diluting the deck a little bit.
Sure.
I think he probably decides between Wingmate Rock or Tasigur, not both. But I prefer the Wingmate Rock because it flies and it blocks the Mantis Riders.
Yep. It's a bit harder to deal with as well.
Yes, it comes as a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
So in this, on the side of the Jeskai Jeskai sideboard, we have Painful Truths, just a 1-off Duress, 1-off Dragon Master Outcast, 1-off 2 Negates, 2 Exert Influence, 2 Disdainful Strokes, 1 Dispel, 3 Surge of Righteousness, and 2 Radiant Flames. So the card here that I want to talk about is Exert Influence. I think in this matchup, this card is absolutely insane. And so with the mana base that Jeskai Black has, he can cast this for 4, which means that he can take Siege Rhino, he can take Tassigurs, he can take Anafenzas, he can take pretty much anything in the deck as long as there's not been a Gideon Emblem or some sort of pump from the Anafenza or Dromoka's commands.
Yep. He can also take a Wingmate Rock.
Yes, though, which is also very good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. The other cards, as we alluded to before, Wingmate Rock is very key here, so he probably wants some number of Disdainful Strokes to be able to answer that. And further than that, potentially see him boarding in Surge of Righteousness for the Rhinos and Anafenza, depending on how he rates those cards in the matchup. Personally, I think that Siege Rhino is not that big of a deal.
No.
Anafenza, on the other hand, sort of is, because it comes down on 3 and you can't stroke it.
Yep.
So I can see that being a thing.
So Maciek has decided actually to mulligan his hand. I believe Charles decided to keep, it looks like 3 or 4 lands plus a Jace. So
I mean, any
hand like that is
hand,
probably a keep.
Any hand which allows you to play turn 2 Jace is probably okay, as long as it's not just 6 lands in the Jace. And even then, there's sometimes when you kind of just do that if you have a man land or something. Even the 6 land Jace hand is probably don't ever keep it. No, you can keep it. It's Jace is just so good, but
yeah, if you're not expecting your opponent to actually kill the Jace early, then it's probably okay.
I mean, in the Abzan aggro deck, it's fairly difficult for them to get rid of it. And the way that they do get rid of it, you can even play around, because if you can get rid of the turn 2 play that they try to fight with the Dromoka's command, you're still fine. In fact, that draws you in a 2-for-1. So yeah, Maciek mulligans down to 6. What do you make of the new Scry rule with the mulligans? How do you think that's affected people's mulligan decisions?
I'm not sure actually. It's an interesting one. It means that the hands that you keep that you were sort of before that were like, ooh, will it get there, will it not? Get there a little bit faster if they're going to get there.
Yeah.
But they won't get there if they weren't going to, if that makes sense. So instead of getting there on turn 3, it gets there on turn 2 because you scry.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was never going to get there, or if it wasn't going to get there until like turn 7, whether it gets there on turn 7 or 6 is almost irrelevant because you've lost by that point, or you're so far behind that you can't really come back. So I think it's made, yeah, I think it's sort of made it's made the decision to mulligan easier, but also made the decision to keep harder, and I think people are probably keeping a worse hand than they would otherwise. What about you?
Um, I think that it makes mulligan to 6 a lot easier, and the mulligan to 5s, mulligan to 5s less painful. So people are more readily mulliganing the first time, and those people who are brave enough to mulligan to 5 are now less likely to be completely punished.
Yep.
As we see now, Charles does play the turn 2 Jace, and there's a card that we've kind of forgot to mention in the sideboard of the Abzan deck, which is Ultimate Price, which is in Maciek's hand, which is going to deal with that Jace nicely and allow his Warden to continue hitting. As you see, fetches up the Sunken Hollow to be able to cast this Ultimate Price. So it's a indication of just how strong Jace is in the matchup that you'd board in Ultimate Prices for this, and pretty much just this. I guess Dragon Master Outcast, which he saw in the game 1, is also quite a difficult card to deal with, but he's going to choose the Duress here, which is interesting, rather than going for the Jace straight away. I guess he's trying to get the information on him while he can. I think I would have just killed the Jace here and just continue hitting with the Warden, but not too opposed to this because it gives him the information so he can plan his turns out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean he can still.
This hand is also
He
quite.
can still kill Jace.
With Dramoka's command, maybe. I didn't see what was in his hand.
No,
So
I if he has one, then
yeah. So Charles's hand, yeah, he does have a Dramoka's command, so that makes a lot more sense. So Charles's hand here is Dragon Master Outcast, Tasica the Golden Fang, 2 Bloated Deltas, a Crackling Doom, and a Dig Through Time. And Maciek decides to take the Crackling Doom here over the Dig Through Time, probably because he wants to just keep being able to aggro his opponent rather than worry about the Dig Through Time, which is going to bury him under. Which is fair enough because he's got a 2/2.
hang on. How is Charles able to activate Jace? Didn't he just play it?
Yeah, that's actually true. So we're gonna just quickly run over and stop them there because that was a misloot, I believe. Yep. So the Jace was just cast this last turn, so he couldn't have activated it in response to the Dramoka's command, and we're just going to stop the game there and get a judge on this. So interestingly, it's actually quite an interesting judge decision here because Charles has drawn an extra card, obviously, and he's looted and discarded another Jace, discarded the Dragon Master Outcast, and Maciek duressed him before this happened. So he did actually have full information on what was on Charles's hand. So depending on what the judges rule, he could potentially rule that the information of the hand is known. So therefore, you can just do a rewind back to where the point of the game was before Charles decided to loot. But it depends on what the judges rule, and it's on the judge's discretion whether he wants to do it that way. If you rule by the letter of the law, he drew extra cards, and what by the letter of the law would be that he just has to follow the drawing extra cards fix.
Penalty. Sure. The thing is, there was a duress.
Yeah.
So Thomas Rapp is just dealing with that. He said he will come and let us know what the ruling is once he is finished.
So whilst we're waiting for the ruling, so we just saw there the intricacies of this matchup with in terms of how Dramoka's command plays out, and it is just for dealing with the Jace. But yeah. So we have the hand information known doesn't have to be used. So it's up to the judge's discretion whether he does want to use it or not. I have a feeling that it won't be used in this case because the precedent is to not use the known information, because it's unless Charles himself wrote down what the hand was and both players can verify what the hand is, there's no there's no call for Maciek to utilize this information for his opponent's benefit, but it's again on the judge's discretion. Yeah. So either way, the current way that the DCI deals with drawing extra cards is no longer a game loss. So what we're going to likely see is there's going to be a warning. It's just that how we deal with the sorting out the game state is the key issue here. So we could either back up to the point before the loot because we have the known information for what is up to that point, or it's just a matter of you've drawn an extra card. We're going to go with the reveal your hand,
Yep.
and then put one away. And although because it's a loot, it's a bit more complicated because now Charles also has an additional card in the graveyard.
Yes.
So that makes it a little bit more
does
awkward.
the card that he discarded not come back to the hand?
So if it does, then what happens would be that.
Well, would because
Yeah. So the fix would probably be that the looted card goes back to the hand, and then Maciek gets to choose which card goes back into the library.
sure.
So that
the card that was discarded was Dragon Master Outcast.
sure.
Because they knew that because that's that. If you look at his graveyard, that's also the card just below Jace.
Yes.
And they can both confirm that.
Yep. So the chat suggested that perhaps you could choose to what card is discarded. So that particular fix wouldn't work because it means that you still allowed him to loot. But I'm not sure what the fix is. We've got Thomas here to tell us what the ruling was.
Okay, so what's happened here was Charles played a Jace and activated it whilst it had summoning sickness, so wasn't eligible to be activated. That caused him to draw a card and discard a card. It constitutes drawing extra cards under the Infraction and Procedure Guide. We have issued that warning, and then in addition to the warning, we normally would consider backing up, but because it was not detected until my coverage colleagues came and found me, we've not considered backing up on this occasion. Again, as with prior, we've considered whether the Thoughtseize remedy is appropriate. That's not appropriate to this situation because the extra card was drawn as the result of the correct resolution of an incorrectly activated ability. So as well as that, Maciek has a responsibility to have stopped that from happening. It's different from just somebody grabbing an extra card off the top of the deck, because Maciek had the opportunity to stop it. He doesn't get the free Thoughtseize, as it were, and Maciek has also gotten a warning for failure to maintain the game state.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas.
So this means that Charles still got the loot, and both players got a warning. So he's actually got an additional card in his graveyard, and I think he got to keep the dig through time from the DRS. So he's got a dig through time in his hand, and
Wow.
so that's kind of worked out a little bit. It's kind of doesn't quite feel right, but that's how the ruling goes, and it's going to not sit so well with Maciek, but he does also have the responsibility to sort of tell his opponent like you can't do that as well.
Yep.
So I guess it's kind of fair, as it were. So now we are going to see a delve card, and I think it is a dig through time.
No, it's Tasiga.
Is it Tasiga? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Maciek is not looking so well now. He's got Tasiga's quite a difficult card to attack through because 4/5s are very hard to deal with.
Oh,
And
there's
wow,
an exotic
we see the
influence.
exert
Wow.
influence here. So that is why I was raving about this card in the
Yeah.
sideboard. As you can see, that's just completely swung the game. He's got his opponent's and offense, and this card isn't like your traditional mind control. It doesn't stick around on the table and allow you to destroy it.
Yeah.
It just says, I'm going to take this card. This is now mine. You can't have it back until the game is over, or you return it to your hand or something else like
And
that.
there's a massive dig through time.
Yeah. So this dig through time is quite a beating considering the last couple of turns here, with Maciek also stuck on 3 lands and not being able to cast his big spells on 4. So it's he's got rid of at least he's got rid of the Tactical the ultimate price that he originally had for the Jace, but this Anafenza is going to do a lot of work, and he's going to get a taste of his own medicine as she delivers 4 points of damage to his face. Did we see what he took out of the
I
digs?
think there was a second Exert Influence, but I can't see properly.
And a Jeskai Charm, I see.
The Jeskai Charm he drew, I think it's a Colligan's Command.
Okay, but this okay. So he's got the Abzan Charm for his own Anafenza, but still that's a
disdainful stroke.
That's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, and
So the disdainful stroke is okay, but as we see in Maciek's hand, it's actually pretty gassy. It's got two Wayne Rocks, a Siege Rhino. Now it's got the Abzan Charm. And speaking of black cards that draw cards for life, there's a Painful Truth for 3 here from Charles, and he's gonna pull ahead again, but he's got the disdainful stroke as well after this Soulfire Grandmaster to deal with the Rhino that could potentially come. I think the ideal draw here for Maciek is probably just an Anafenza that gets under the disdainful stroke.
Yep. Unfortunately, he didn't draw one. He did draw
A land
Warden, and he
for
drew
his
2 lands,
Rhino.
so
he's got to hit the Rhino, which is going to get stroked, and this does not look so well.
I think this is lethal. So he gets to attack with this, and he's got Jeskai Charm and
Does he have
he's got a
Crackling Doom? Okay.
Oh, he doesn't have double red. Oh no, he's got
Bloodstained Mire in hand, which allows him to fetch a Smouldering Marsh, I suppose.
Yep.
So it looks like he's.
Oh, he hasn't actually
has he played the land this turn? Not sure, but he's going to play the Tasigur here.
Sure.
And Maciek's kind of short of options here. He can play the Warden as a chump blocker for a turn, or play the Den
No, he
Protector.
can't, because he's just got. He's got a. Oh no, he's got a. I think he's got something to do 2 damage in hand.
Okay, so as long as Charles untaps here, he's got Crackling Doom. So we know out in the booth that this is Charles's game to lose here, but I think Maciek's trying to consider his options. He's got either Warden or he's got Den Protector. He could play both, but I think he's just going to play the Warden, and he has to play both because he's got 2 attackers coming at him. Like, the known game state means he needs to play both. But he's going to put himself down to 1 here. To find green source, I suppose?
Yes.
So that he saves the points of future life if he ever needs to worry about that, rather than paying 1 off the wastes.
Yep.
But again, all just formalities here, as we know there's a Crackling Doom in Charles's hand, which deals the last 2 points of damage. And there you have it, the Crackling Doom. Good to see the handshake there as well, just to make sure there was no hard feelings on that ruling there.
So that back to the booth.
Yep, I think that puts Charles on 5-1, which
I believe so. Yeah.
which means that he can potentially ID in the last round.
Yeah.
Because how many players did we have today? It was
just over 80, I believe.
Just over 80. So yeah, the X11 normally. So the way that tournament maths work is that the closer you are to the boundary. Just over the boundary means that X1 and 1 is usually quite safe. The closer you are to the next boundary, the more likely it is that you have to win X1 to get in, rather than X11. Yeah. So with 80 players, with the previous boundary being 65, means that X11 should be fairly safe.
Yep.
So we should be seeing Charles in the top 8.
Hopefully, yeah. So there you go. That was round number 6.
Yep.
Our second match on. Our
second match is finished,
I believe. Is finished. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that was quite a long.
That was a very quick game.
Quite a long match. So we will be back for round number 7.
Yep.
They're still playing. Okay. Excellent. So we've been told that we do actually have another feature match going.
So we do have a backup match, and it looks like it's an Abzan Mirror.
Abzan Mirror, I believe. Yep.
So, do we know who we have on the stream?
It's Wong versus Aderito Baptista.
Okay, so Quo's on Abzan Black.
He's Abzan
Aggro.
Yep.
We don't, and it looks like it's the same
Abzan
for
Megamorph?
Aderito.
Can you to update the deck types? 'Cause we didn't check.
Yeah, that's fine. That one's right.
There's
Is it
the
Megamorph?
Megamorph, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So as we get in towards the end of the Swiss rounds, we are seeing more Abzans filtering to the top.
Yep.
Having started the day off with a lot of green-red aggro, it's interesting to see that Abzan is surging its way to the top through all of that. Partly probably due to the fact that Rhino is quite the beating. Quite the beating for those red decks. And we have seen also quite a lot of Jeskai, so I'm surprised that there are so many Abzan decks as there are.
Yep. So, Quo just deciding to go on the beatdown plan with the Shambling Vent. Something that we've seen quite a lot. That card is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Aderito is stuck on his
Two lands. And his hand is just full of
3 and 4
3
drops.
and 4 drops,
I
including.
mean, he can play a Den Protector.
I think at this point in time he probably just needs to play a Den Protector to
Yeah.
stem some of the damage, and also like I think he's got 8 cards in hand, so he's going to be discarding anyway.
Exactly. And I mean, what else are you going to discard? What? Discard
He's going to choose
discard
to
Raptor and hope for the best? I mean, yeah.
well, you want to cast a Raptor though, so
Exactly.
so
I mean,
he's chosen to discard his Gideon, which he's got another 2 of in his hand. Unfortunately for him, that Kuro isn't actually developing his board either, with I believe just more lands in hand. So, and again another draw step, and it's another Deathmist Raptor. I can see him discarding the second Raptor here because the first Raptor he can cast, but the second Raptor is not going to be cast most
Exactly.
likely. So
or he's just going to cast the Den Protector.
yeah, or just cast the Den Protector. But the Den Protector doesn't block here either, so it's not ideal. I think Quo's hand is just 4 lands, I believe. So, but he does have 2 Shambling Vents now. So
Yeah.
those lands are going to eventually allow him to attack for 4 a turn if his opponent continues to do nothing. So there's also Jamoka's command. So if he does play the Den Protector, it will just get killed. Yeah. So we're just watching. Aderito is just considering his lines here. So he could play the. So as we said, he could play the Den Protector as just as a naked 2/1, or he could discard the Deathmist Raptor as he's just done so here. I think the line of discarding the Raptor here is fine because Kuro's not doing anything. He just wants to be able to get some value out of his Den Protector later on that would potentially get him back into this game. And the old adage in Magic is that Scrooge does beat Flood, and Kuro is flooding quite hard here.
Yeah.
Although he did just draw a Warden, which I don't think Aderito has a way of dealing with right away. So, but he did just draw a land. However, it does come into play tapped, so he's going to still be stuck for at least one more turn, as Kuro is going to just level up the Warden twice. So it's now a 3/3 trample with lifelink.
And it's going to become 8 this turn?
He has a choice. He can make it 8, but I think that might not be the correct line because I think that opens up to the stance. Yep, there we go. So there's a Valorous stance ready for it, and now Kuro is set back another turn as Aderito is now has got his 3rd land drop, and he can start casting things. And there we go, the 4th land and a handful of Gideons, and we have a game of Magic, guys. So be interesting to see whether he does lead with the Gideon. I can't see any reason why he wouldn't. So he can play a Gideon here, make his ally, and then the following turn he can, if he gets another land, then he's definitely back in the game because he can start making his Wingmate Rock, or even just a Whisperwood to just flood the board, as Kuro is very much mana flooded here.
I think he's got 2 lands and an
Jamoka's command. So the Jamoka's command doesn't actually do that much to the. I guess okay. So he can actually kill the Gideon, I think.
No. He needs...
Oh no, he needs to have 2 more mana to do so.
Yeah.
So he can put the Gideon down to 1.
Yep.
Which isn't fantastic because it's still not dead.
No.
And it will be kind of like he'd be using his Jamoka's command to basically get no value out of it because he's just killed half of a Gideon.
Yeah.
Not even half, maybe.
Yeah, he's killed a token.
Yeah, which is he's just gonna make another one if he wants to.
And he could like make another one, make another Gideon, and make another token. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden he's got 2 tokens and a 4 and a
And
Gideon at 4 again.
Quo
so-
must have some inkling of the fact that Aderito has multiple Gideons in hand because he
Yeah.
discarded one. Either that or he has a lot of spice.
Yeah. Although Quo did just draw a Rhino, so
That's a pretty good draw. Like
Yeah.
the Rhino lets him, so he can just play the Rhino and then just attack with just the Shambling Events with no Jamoka's command backup, because that would force his opponent's ally can block it, but it'll die.
Yep.
So it's basically a free attack. The
Yep.
alternative is to keep up the Jamoka's command, but not seeing the value in doing so.
no.
So he's going to lead with the attack. He's going to attack the Gideon, I presume? Yes. So I think if I was Aderito in this position, I would just let it hit him,
Yep.
because he wants to keep the token back alive so that he can just swing to animate. Swing to raid the rock if he draws the land.
But he can also just animate Gideon to attack.
True, but like either way, I don't think he needs to block here. I think he'd rather just keep the board presence.
Yeah.
But he does choose to block, probably fearing Absent Charm from Quo. So quite well played from Quo, leaving up playing the Siege Rhino post combat so that his opponent makes a slightly unfavourable block. Slightly unfavourable block. So now he plays the Siege Rhino, putting Aderito to 9, and so I said there was a game on. He still needs to draw quite well here. He does draw the 5th land, which lets him play the Whisperwood, but we know that Quo has a Jamoka's command,
Yep.
which can get rid of the Wingmate Rock the turn after. Not Wingmate Rock, the Whisperwood the turn after, but he still gets the manifest. But it does mean that he doesn't need to attack with Gideon, so he can just make another 2/2.
Now we see
So he did.
Wingmate Rock.
Yeah, he did go with the attack and then make the Wingmate Rock. I think I preferred this line to the Whisperwood line, because this means that he puts the Gideon outside of the Rhino range as far as he knows. He doesn't
Yep.
know his opponent has a Jamoka's command, and he gets 2 flyers, and he's going to be able to gain some life out of it next turn.
Yeah, I quite like here Quo animating one of his vents and attacking. In fact, he can animate 2 vents and attack. But I think animating 1 vent and attacking,
I think.
attacking both at Gideon. Oh, he's animating 2.
Yeah, I think he's going to attack. He's going to attack his opponent directly here, because his opponent's only on 9. This is quite a big attack, so it forces his opponents into sort of unfavourable blocks. So he could probably just block the 2 vents.
Yep.
At which point, I guess the line would be to Jamoka's command the real rock.
Yep.
I'm not so sure about this attack actually. It looks like he's trying to get his opponent to block the Rhino. There we go. So he wanted his opponent to double block the Rhino. So now it allows him to Jamoka's command, put a counter onto the vents, and fight. Yeah. So he fights the rock, kills the rock with the Rhino.
Yep.
Then the Rhino will deal combat damage and kill the other token. So
Yep.
that's actually a very good trade-off in the end.
And it kills Gideon.
Yeah, and kills Gideon also. So he was attacking Gideon there, not the life total. So we're seeing actually the power of Shambling Vent here. It's
Yeah.
such a hard card to deal with. It's a very awkward shape, and the lifelink aspect of it is also quite big.
So for those asking, the ruling from Charles's game was both players given a warning, because Charles did not draw a card from anything. He drew a card from correctly resolving an ability, as opposed to incorrectly drawing a card when he shouldn't have. He shouldn't have been able to draw the card, but he did play correctly because he forgot that Jace didn't have haste.
So the infraction isn't for drawing the card. The infraction is for activating the ability. So the warning is given for that in particular infraction. Normally, if it was just drawing a card, then you would be able to but because it's the infraction was because of the activating of the ability and not drawing the card, the ruling was just to let it stand and then have both players be given a warning, and it was too quick. So the card drawing the activation and the card drawing happened too quickly for it to be backed up. And we see a Whisperwood here from Aderito, and Quo has megamorphed his Den Protector, and he's returned an Absent Charm, I believe? Or is that his graveyard that he's holding in his hand and trying to decide what he's going to return?
I think it's his graveyard that he's looking at what to return. I think he wants to...
Dramoka's command to kill the Whisperwood, potentially?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think his last if his last card's a land, he can use to fetch, and it's untapped.
No, what he could do here is he can activate the event, but he just can't attack with it. But he's played the vent.
Yeah, he's got a land. So if he's got a land, he can activate the vent,
kill the
Whisperwood,
and still attack with the vent.
No, because then it can be blocked by
sure,
the...
but like the line is he can attack.
Yep.
But he didn't actually need to fetch to do this, so he could activate the vents and have it tapped and tap it for mana, and then fight. It would still work. But he's cracked the fetch to do this instead. So that's a 4-5 against 4, I believe. That then Protects has just come down this turn, so I guess the line is just to pass the game back here and see what Aderito can do. That's quite a big shambling event. If it was difficult to deal with as a 2-3, it's much more difficult to deal with as a Rhino.
Yep.
And I think that dice there is representing additional turns.
Correct.
So in second extra turn, and it doesn't look like... I don't think Aderito is capable of winning this game now from 32. So... a few options here. He's got a Silk Wrap in hand, which can get rid of the Den Protector, but then he'd still be facing 2 Shambling Vents. Can't see what cards. He's also got Death Misraptor. So what he could do here is he could Silk Wrap the Den Protector, then play a Death Misraptor to block the vents.
Yep.
And he would be able to stay alive.
Yeah. I think that's probably his best plan.
He's gonna morph the Den Protector and pass the turn.
Interesting.
That is... What is in his graveyard that he wants back? I guess it's probably the Wing Mayrock or the...
Was it a Den Protector? That
yes,
morphed?
he just morphed the Den Protector.
He has a Death Misraptor in his graveyard?
Ah, right, okay, so that's relevant. So the Death Misraptor that he discarded at the beginning of the game when he was mana screwed is now going to be able to come back into play and potentially block this 4-5 of a Shambling Vent. But he's chosen to flip it up before Quo's gone to attack, so I'm not sure this is correct here. Because now Quo knows that there's a Death Misraptor in the way.
Yeah.
And might be more reluctant to attack with the team. Just to answer the question in the chat, the looting is still considered as drawing a... The looting was still drawing an extra card, but that wasn't the initial infraction. The infraction was for activating an ability which he couldn't have activated. So you don't punish the player for the consequence of all the other actions, so you just punish them for the initial infraction, which was to activate the Jace. What I believe is what the judge said was the ruling for it. So, what just happened there?
So he just blocked the Den Protector with the Den Protector.
Right. And I believe that's the end of that. So that's a draw then, I suppose.
Yep.
And that puts both of these players on 4-on-1.
Yep.
So they will be playing for win in the next round, which puts the standings probably quite precarious for a lot of players.
Yes.
Because that will mess up a lot of the pairings next round, which will make the last round quite interesting.
Yep. So we will come back to the booth and an exciting round 6.
That was a very eventful round 6 indeed.
Yes.
We had a interesting ruling which the chat's quite involved with, and
Yep.
it was an interesting one because the ruling which was given that most players would expect would be that Charles had drawn an extra card with Jace.
Yep.
However, the judge team, I believe, correctly identified that actually the infraction wasn't for drawing extra cards because Jace does say draw a card.
Yep.
But the infraction was to activate the Jace in the first place.
Yep.
And so therefore, the two players are being punished for that infraction rather than the consequence of drawing and looting.
Yep.
And actually, that played a part in the game in the end because it did add an extra card to Charles's graveyard, which allowed him to delve a little bit earlier. He still had quite a lot of cards in his graveyard, so I don't think it completely changed the outcome of the game, but it certainly could have had a much bigger impact.
So we'll be back for round 7 fairly soon.
Yep.
We will try and get some standings up between
Sure.
this round and the next.
Mhm.
We will hopefully we have a judge eagerly nodding his head to us. We will have standings between these 2 rounds.
Yep.
We will get them up on screen for you, so we can have so you and John can have a word about them.
Sure.
Thank
See
you
you
very
soon.
much.